Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Entrepreneurial Audacity. I'm here with Manu and, oh, sorry about that, inhaling my hair. And today we're going to be diving into Manu's world. So I'm going to hand over to you. Give us a bit of an intro on who you are, what you do, and anything you'd like to share with the listeners.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much, Angie, for inviting me to your podcast and all the listeners who are listening to me here. I am Manu Gupta. I'm a mother of a teenage daughter and a funnel audit specialist who works with entrepreneurs, be it coaches, course creators, or authors, in finding invisible revenue leaks in their funnels or backend systems. I work with real entrepreneurs who've built businesses who are generating money. And I have found an upwards of $5,000 in money saved through these audits. I've built this because I wanted to be in the audience when my daughter was performing on the stage.
I love that. That is such a nice introduction. Thank you. And I absolutely loved, your last comment that you wanted to be in the audience when your daughter performed. So, let's start there because, this podcast is to talk about business and mindset. And, what I really loved when you said that is that ties into the why of why you started your business and the motivation. So tell us a little bit about what maybe your life was like before you went into working for yourself, and where was that friction and that point of actually, I want to be in the audience for my daughter? What was that like?
So it all started with the birth of my daughter and how the life totally changed from there. I spent over 10 years fitting myself into structures that was not built for me as a mother, be it corporate life, Tupperware, startups, or teaching. They all gave me something, taught me a lesson, taught me a skill, gave me community, but they could not give me the flexibility I needed to be fully present with my daughter when she was receiving awards or participating in annual functions or, performing on the stage. And that idea was always running in my mind. And I wanted to be there with her without the guilt, fully present for her. So it all started from there. And while I was in the school, it was an amazing experience, but at the same time, I attended this NLP workshop, where I took an oath that I'm going to take the control of my life in my own hands and live life on my own terms. So that's where it all started.
I love that. And it's a really important thing that you've highlighted because it is life on your own terms. When we look at starting a business or starting a project and, being audacious and diving into the realm of working for yourself, there's a lot that comes up. And, I know I've faced a lot of friction in my journey, and kind of overcoming those fears and those barriers has enabled me to get to the point that I'm at today, and also, start this podcast and be doing all of these projects and, making an impact. So I'd love to hear about, what some of your friction points were and what are some of the challenges that you have faced and how you overcame them.
So, real challenges were really, again, this was the biggest one for me, where I was not fully present with my daughter and feeling guilty. So generally in my culture, we have a very set tradition of, okay, you can work, but at the same time, you're taking care of your family, your children, your house, everything. So either you are working and feeling guilty, or you are sitting at home and feeling frustrated because you're educated and you're not working. And that day, I pictured when I took the oath in that stadium, uh, I pictured myself sitting in that audience while my daughter was performing on stage, and being with her whenever there were all these occasions she was in attending her ceremonies. And I decided that I'm going to live life on my own terms and also help other females who are trapped in the same system, empower them, come out of that. And so it was challenging, but I took control. I decided, I took the oath. So I just ensured that and then I quit my teaching job in December 2018, took a year off in 2019, and then COVID happened when I started my online business.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. What an interesting time. Talk to us about, was there any like moments during COVID that you were kind of like, oh God, what have I just gotten into with business? Like, were you at any point concerned about being in business by yourself then?
Honestly, no, because so 2019 was the year of foundation for me. That was the best year of my life, where I did a lot of inner work and I went through a spiritual journey. I focused on my health, weight loss, mental health, meditations, and I started becoming a happy person, and I was actually happy from inside, genuinely, not pretending to be happy. And that set the foundation for what I wanted in future. I created a clear picture of what I wanted. My non-negotiables, weekends would be off, spending time either with myself or my family or my daughter, friends, whatever. If I'm working, I don't want to create $1 billion empire. I'm building a business because I want to have the freedom of time and money to be fully present with my daughter. And that was the foundation that I had set. So when I started working in 2020 after COVID, that was the foundation that I was building on. And it was not tough for me to move on because I had it all set, clear. I'd pictured this whole business for myself.
Awesome. I love that. And tell me about the mindset that you had to, like when you went over that, you went through like this transformation and you had to do a lot of inner work. How was that? Because I found that is the hard part when you go into entrepreneurship. There are so many limiting beliefs and so many barriers that you need to get through. Like, what unfolded for you and how did you get through?
Interesting question, Angie. The foundation work that I did, the inner work that I did, actually helped me in the entrepreneurship journey big time. Because, obviously entrepreneurship is not an easy boat, right? You ride the ship and there are always, tosses, things that are happening. But there was, in my mind, I was, I have been in Tony's world for about 3 to 4 years now. And Tony Robbins, I'm talking about. And then I've attended his UPW session and RPM. So UPW session helped me in creating energy and identity shifts. And RPM gave me the frameworks to work in my business, which meant that whenever I was working, I was focused on outcome-based, results-based, and the same. And that is everything that I was looking at even for my own clients. So that was, how everything just changed, because I knew that I was there to serve my clients. And while I'm building my business, it is important that I also empower the females to have the time and the freedom. So it's not just doing any work. It is really creating that focus the outcome of or the result of having the time and freedom towards the end, which is the end focus of most of the females.
I like that. And it is, like being a female going into this world and just, with things in general, there is still a lot of barriers that we face, even though the world is going to a very more of a female friendly zone. Absolutely. There's still a lot of friction that we have. And I know that I've faced that a lot with my career. And, part of the podcast is I want to demonstrate to people that, break those glass ceilings, because it's limitless. There's so many opportunities in the world. And you made a comment about the identity shift, and I'd love to dive into that a little bit more, of where your identity was and opposed to where it is now, and how that transformed on your journey.
That's an amazing question. So before I went into the inner world, I was a totally different person. I was living every day as it comes. And I was just focused on my career. I needed to take care of my family. All that was there. I was a mother, I was a wife, I was a career-oriented woman making money. But after I did the inner work, I created unknowingly, which I only learned after being with Tony, unknowingly, I created an identity of being a happy person inside who is only focused on creating happiness for others, who is always only focused on serving other entrepreneurs in being happy, having the freedom that I created for myself, having the freedom to love myself and others and serve others in their best version.
I love that. That's beautiful. And, so you said something earlier around the lines of that you don't want to build $1 billion empire, but you want to be there and be present for your daughter and your family and your friends. And I think that's a really important thing to consider, because a lot of the times when you say, like, I'm going into starting a business, people automatically assume that you want to be a billionaire and have like heaps and heaps of money, but it's not actually about that. And sometimes you can, start a business and generate a really good income doing something that you love and that supports the lifestyle that you want to live without sacrificing everything. Because, we look at a lot of people who are very high up in companies and very big businesses. And if you look at like how happy they are, and, you said that you're a happy person now. And I think that's just beautiful, because you've been able to demonstrate that you can start a business. You don't need to scale it to $1 billion to create that happiness and that foundation of support for your family.
Sure.
So one thing that I would love to kind of know more about is, what does your life look like now, and what are the highlights of all that? What was or do you have any moments that have been really standout moments on your journey where you've just been like, wow, I've smashed this?
Yes, several. First things first, I never knew that anything that happens outside in the external world is a manifestation of the inner thoughts. I never knew that. And I thought that was bullshit before I did the inner work. I was like, I would laugh at something like that, But after this, I was like, oh, look at me. How? I mean, I was totally naive. I didn't know anything. And after that, any conversation that I'd have, things that I learn, people when they speak, it was a totally magical world. It appeared as if I had transcended into a different world altogether, where I could just understand things. I could be happy. I could change my focus. I could change my energy. Um, and I could be fully more present with people whom I'm with. So if I'm working with coaches and course creators, when I'm working with them, I'm really serving them. I'm always trying to be in their shoes, serving their audience and their businesses. And one of my clients actually mentioned that. And that's from where I got this thing where she said, Manu, I feel you're always trying to be in my shoes, serving my clients, my customers. And that's the best thing I like about you. And that was really touching for me because I loved it. And that's true. I want to serve because at the end of the day, I'm helping you because you want to help your clients and your customers. When I'm present with my family or friends, I am just with them. I just want to enjoy that moment. So,
Yeah.
those moments when I could suddenly attend my daughter's annual functions on a working day without feeling guilty, totally present, full day off, that was amazing. I couldn't do that earlier. I couldn't be part of a sports day because I had to be, because I was bound in this 9 to 5 boundaries, right?
Yeah. And I want to dive into, what it's like working you said that you were in the corporate world. What's it like working in the corporate world in your region? Because I know that it's, outside looking in, it's quite competitive to my understanding. So how did you find that? And how did you go leaning into giving that up and giving up the stability of having, a corporate job and diving into the unknown?
Very interesting. First things first, my corporate career spanning, more than 20, 25 years is not limited to my region. I have worked across 4 continents and I've worked across countries, South Africa, Romania, London, Japan. So I've, lived and worked across various geographies. And that helped me because when I was working here in my own country as well, I was working only with global clients, again, across regions and continents. So geography was never limiting for me because I was working across, I was a real person giving real results to my clients. And that is what mattered. That did not diminish my contribution towards anything. So, yeah, so working in my own country with these people globally always gave me, and I love the fact that I could use the technology as a tool to make this happen for myself and for my clients. Now, coming to the second part of what you said is leaving this stable job to dive into the unknown. This was like, I remember when I was working in my last job was teaching. And while I was standing and teaching my students to follow their passion and their career to be free, I realized that I am doing the opposite. I was not free, right? I was not free. I did not have the freedom to be what I wanted to be. And that was the moment I decided I needed to quit. And so I quit in December 2018. And the fact that I could just be there for my daughter, be with her, drove me. Whether it's an unknown, I've always been an adventurous person. So I love that.
Yeah. That's why we vibe. We picked up on that when we first met. I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, tying back into, that, did you and have you at any point gone through because we have ups and downs, right? When you go into business, it's not a trajectory in one linear line. It is
Never.
There's shit everywhere. Excuse my language, but sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, and you're just on this roller coaster. So I'd love to know if there was a moment where you faced a point on your journey that made you stop and think, did I just make the right decision? Were you in a fearful zone? Like, had something happened where you really thought or were overwhelmed with doubt that you'd made the right decision? And how did you overcome that?
Okay. So overwhelming problems, challenges are always part of life. And after being part of Tony's world, he says that the bigger the problems, the better the growth. So I overcame my challenges with the help of an accountability group who, made me go past all the excuses and ensure that I was really building my business because I wanted to serve my, customers. I wanted to empower these females to be free. And that drove me. So the foundation, because it was set right, it really lasted me and my business through all the ups and downs. So there have been many moments where I felt, oh, this is really difficult. This is really challenging. But I could easily keep going because I had, very clear vision of being present with my daughter, and second, of serving females to have the freedom of time and money. There have been uncountable number of times when my husband said, you must pick up a job. You are cut out for a job. You can earn tenfolds what you're earning right now simply by being by being in a job. And I'm like, but I won't be a part of the journey of my daughter. I won't be able to look at her. I'm not speaking to her throughout the day, but the fact that I'm present at home is more than enough.
I love that. That's really important. And, that's a really, really interesting thing that you've just highlighted, that your partner was encouraging you against the entrepreneurial world. Tell us a little bit about that, because that will be really powerful for our listeners to hear, especially our female listeners, because we will face that. There will be times, and no offense, males listening, like, we all love you, but there is always a bit of a gender bias that the woman should be the one staying at home chilling. Like, we're still in that is still very much a real thing. But diving into this world and having a partner that he sounds like he wasn't super supportive or was more encouraging towards the job. So how did you navigate that?
Okay, so if I talk about challenge, that was the biggest challenge for me, where he, obviously being a mom, I need to take care of my daughter. So that was my territory, right? But at the same time, going to a job and earning money and still feel guilty and still not be able to do certain things was quite difficult for me. And that's why I decided that I need to break those boundaries and, untrap myself. But my husband, for him, if I was not making money and I was still working online, obviously initially entrepreneurship is not, it's like a business. So if you're not investing millions of dollars into a business, you have to invest some time to get set up and running, right? You can't start from day one and start making money. So if I was not earning, because I was earning really good, making good money in my jobs, if I was not making money, he was like, why don't you quit and start working? This is not really for you. And I kept saying that I need to be with my daughter. And if I'm working, that's not going to happen. So that was always my excuse. He gave me timelines. He gave me time periods. Okay, take 6 months. If you start earning, it's okay. If you don't earn enough. And there came a time when I stopped speaking about my earnings. I was like, I'm earning enough. And fortunately, in those 6 months time period, I started landing clients. I started making mindset shifts, where instead of, because at that point, when someone is really pushing you, you come to a point where instead of serving, you are kind of making sales. And then I changed back my mindset, where I started thinking of serving my customers and clients. the moment I came back and I came out of my desperation, I started landing clients. I started making money. And so even though obviously in the initial days, you would not be making the same sort of money, right? And then there was always this push to go back to the corporate world, go back and make good money. But my
From your
daughter,
partner?
from my partner.
Yep. Yeah. Was there any other, like, was anyone else in your family or like your friend group, like encouraging you to go back into the corporate world as well?
My friend group, no, I wouldn't say, because here people were like, that's your territory. There are a lot of females who are sitting at home and not even working. They are just being there at home, feeling frustrated. And I hear that all the time, that they're feeling frustrated because they're educated. They've quit their jobs to be with their kids. And then they are working females who are feeling guilty that they can't be at home with their children. So they're both the types, and there are always different types of thought processes. So someone who is at home would tell you when you're working that, hey, you're not with your children. How can you leave them at home? And then when someone is, if you're at home, they're like, you're not making money, you're not earning. What's the point of having that education? So you're always having all those different thoughts. But fortunately for me, my parents, my family members, they were always supportive, and they're like, my parents have always said, do what you feel like. And
I love that.
and then my daughter was always a non-negotiable, which always kept me going.
That is really cool. I love that. And it sounds like, so, you know, like your business is obviously doing great because you're clearly showing that you're in a comfortable position. Was there, or what was the moment where you were then comfortable to start telling your partner about your finances and your revenue? You know, like, was there a moment where you kind of were like, okay, yep, well, I'm earning now, you know, and you moved out of that desperation and started like making sales and landing clients? Because that would have been a great moment of like, I've done the right thing. And, you know, if I reflect on my own journey, is like when you do all of this work and you're doing mountains and mountains of work and seeing no results, and you're kind of like, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? But then you start, you know, that moment where you get a bit of momentum, and then it starts going tenfold. So I'd love to hear how you navigated that and what that was like with your partner.
Yeah. So, just like you mentioned, entrepreneurship is not an easy journey because you're wearing so many hats, sales, marketing, tech, operations, delivery. So obviously it takes time to build up all these areas and start making money. So I remember that time when I said he gave you a 6 months timeline and said, otherwise stop working. So obviously there was pressure in my mind, and that time came and I did not make money. And then I got this lovely group of accountable friends who, pulled me out of that desperation and fear mode and put me back in my comfort zone, where they said, what is it? They brought me back to my why. Why is it that I started? And I had both the reasons of being with my daughter and being serving the female community so that they could be free. The moment I got into that, I started making money. And within 6 months, I came to a point where I could say, I'm making money now. So I could now just feel happy, feel good, and tell my partner, hey, I am succeeding. It's real.
I love that. And what was his response, if I may ask?
So he's like, I don't understand it, but if you're making money, it's okay. I'm happy.
Isn't it funny when, because until you go into this journey, you don't, and you hear people say like, yeah, but entrepreneurship, like there's all these like ups and downs, and you're like, how bad can it be? And then it's not until you're in the ring and you're like, okay, cool. I have absolutely no money to my name right now, but I'm doing all of this work. And, then there's this pressure of like, what are you doing? And you get, I don't know about you, but I sometimes would get so overwhelmed with like self-doubt. I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? And then when you
Yeah.
come out the other side, it's just like that the sigh of relief that it's like, oh, okay, I can breathe again. And then you're just like, yeah, actually, and I'm kicking some ass while I'm doing it. So it must have
Yeah.
been a really great moment. And your daughter's a teenager, so how is she throughout this journey? Like, because she's your why with this whole thing, and like, I think that's absolutely beautiful. And I know that your story is going to resonate with our female listeners, and hopefully a lot of our male listeners as well. The dads out there, if your wife's doing some stuff, support her. Like, just a side note, but I'd love to know how your daughter was throughout this process, because like, were there moments where you were kind of like lapsing and she had to kind of pick you up, or was
Yeah. So, well, she was always supportive, fortunately. So, um, COVID was a little challenging time when we were all at home and the workload increased and we were all together in one place. Uh, so that was a little challenging, and it was challenging for her to see that I had to take out my own time and she couldn't just speak to me any minute. If I'm in the middle of a call, she has to wait. So there were a lot of those moments and days and times when I'm doing something, but she was always very supportive of me working. She started navigating her own problems in her own way. So it's good that, she also felt empowered to handle her own things. And she's now teenage, about to turn 18, stepping into her own life. And I personally hope that she's taken that now she can also choose her own life on her own terms, the way I created my own life. If I could not fit into a structure, I built my own. So hopefully she'll also do the same now that
oh,
she's
I
stepping
love
into
that.
her own life.
I love that. You're giving me goosebumps. That's absolutely beautiful, because it's a thing, right? And God, she's so lucky that she's got a power horse of a mum like you to inspire her. And, I know that I'm taking a lot from this call. I know our listeners will be as well, because women, we need to stick together, and entrepreneurs, we need to stick together. And it's, like, how can we build each other up? And you've mentioned a few times about your accountability group and your support network, and I'd love to hear more about that, because your network is your net worth, right? I love that saying. And the people that you're around, your environment, it has such an impact on us. So what was that like, and what was it like finding them? And were you ever having moments of fear to go to them in the start? Because a lot of, like, the aim with this is that we also help inspire other people to start businesses, and they're going to come to those friction points. And I know for me, stepping into an arena where you're not the smartest person and you're completely out of your depth is terrifying. But what was it like for you when you've been gone into that group initially, and how did you did you just go in and it was completely comfortable from the start, or did you have internal stuff that you had going on that you needed to work through to be able to kind of show up?
Yeah. You've said that very correctly, accurately, that we always have these self-doubts and this imposter syndrome. It is always working on us, and especially in the initial stages, right? So that's what's going to happen. How is it going to happen? And then while we were forming this group, just like you mentioned, it was like, am I good enough to be a part of this group even? How is that going to work out? How is that going to pan out? Am I going to contribute? Because those people, some of them are really, experienced and making huge amounts of money or this or that. So there's always these things, but I guess we had a good working relationship, and that's where we were able to still gel together. And even with all the fears, we were able to connect and realize that each one of us had a different type of fear. Each one of us had a different type of um imposter syndrome that we were able to voice through and help each other navigate and come out of, and uh, and connect with our whys, so that we could serve. And again, create that mindset of serving rather than selling and making money, which changed the entire attitude.
I love that. That's beautiful. And imposter syndrome is huge. And I'm
Huge.
sure that you would have faced it even in your corporate job, in any job that you go into. When we do something new, our brain doesn't like it. It's chemically, we don't like it. But it's one of those things that we really need to like harness and lean into, because, I've had moments of where I have been the least qualified in a room telling other people what they should be doing. And I was sitting there, and this is when I was in business improvement, and I was like, I'm the youngest one here. I'm the least qualified. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to tell you what we need to be fixing. And I just remember, and I was with a really good group, right? So, and one of the leaders in the room actually opened the floor up and got everyone to ask about like what their biggest fear was and things like that. And everyone kind of went around, and I just openly said, he's like, all right, Angela, what's yours? And I was like, imposter syndrome. I've got it hard right now because you guys are like specialized engineers. You've got 40 years experience. Just like, I'm here, but I'm the one reviewing your performance. So, and he just said to me, he said, Ange, you have every right to be here and you bring value. And I just remember that being such a profound moment for me, because it put peace almost with the imposter syndrome. And it was like, oh, okay, I get it. And it's like you could breathe and just be kind of, comfortable and navigate that. So, I'm like, what particular moment, or what was your kind of imposter syndrome? Like, where do you think that was stemming from for you, and what factors were kind of tying into it?
Um, it's like when you enter this world, especially the online world, you've always worked physically out there in the jobs. Um, I don't have a business background, and my family, friends, I've always seen people working in jobs. So for me, that was a totally unknown territory, working, no boundaries. I don't know what I'm doing, whom I'm connecting with, and how is it going to pan out across the continent, in terms of, how I'm helping them. So there's so many things that was going on in my mind. But at the same time, there's this one thing that has always played at the back of my mind. I know that if I'm saying something, if I can bring results, I will be able to get results. So that helped me come out of my imposter syndrome. And then there were always people around me who would push me in different ways. Whether it was pushing me in my identity shift, whether, it was pushing me with the sales mechanism or serving mechanism. So literally bringing me back to who I am. When you have those people around you, that really helps you in coming out of your imposter syndrome, because I know that I can serve. So if anyone would ever ask me this question, even if I'm working out of fear or desperation, do you think you can help them? I was like, yes, I can certainly help them in every way possible. The only thing that ever stumped me in the beginning was results, because I couldn't pinpoint a result that I can bring you from day one. That only came after working with a couple of coaches or, clients, but not from day one, especially in the online field. So that was the only thing that really stumped me. And then they came from there to the journey where I remember saying to someone, hey, I have increased my own lifetime value of my own clients from $1,500 to $15,000 plus. And that was a moment where I said, I think it's really worth all the challenges and the problems that we've overcome, because now I'm also helping my own clients diagnosing their systems and the back end and doing exactly that, not only just fixing their revenue leaks that they are leaving money on the table, but at the same time helping them create, scale their revenue and impact so they can also increase their lifetime value of their own clients and the average order value and feel happy about that.
I love that. That's beautiful. And I love what you said about the serving, because when you go into entrepreneurship, you become of service. Same when you go into a leadership kind of position, like you are there for your customers, you're there to help them, and that you helping them then helps grow you. So it's just like this beautiful harmony at play that you get in business. And until you dive into that realm, you don't actually get to experience that feeling of satisfaction and knowing that, hey, I've just transformed this person's business from X to Y, and like it's massive. And there's so many little wins that you get along the way, and I think it's beautiful that you've proof is in the pudding. You've absolutely been able to show that you've got that output now for your clients, and I can hear the conviction in your voice when you say that. I know that I can do it. There's no imposter syndrome flaking about there. It's like I've got it. We know, and your daughter will see that. And I absolutely love that she has been your driver with this whole journey. And I think it's incredible that you've had a partner who's been encouraging you to go back into the corporate world while you're going on this journey, because so many of our listeners, when they're getting into a business, I'm sure that they're going to face the same thing. So, you've actually given us so much to work with and think about, and I think it's really valuable. And this conversation has been really, really valuable. I do also, on trend with the name, what does Audacity mean to you in the business setting?
Wow. Interesting. For me, Audacity was breaking the barriers of 9 to 5, coming out of the traps of the corporate setting, coming out of the traps of there's only two options. Either I'm a working mother feeling guilty, or I'm feeling at home, feeling frustrated, not working, where I could have my third option, where I could build my business and my family life on my own terms when no one else around me could even think about it. And I could have that flexibility and not be a part of those two. Just what I wanted. I had a vision and I built it. That is Audacity to me.
I love that. I absolutely love that. You're giving me chills. It's beautiful. And that's exactly what this is about. So last final question. Do you have a book recommendation, a favorite quote, or a piece of information or thought that you would like to leave our listeners with?
Sure. So my favorite, you want to say coach, because I lead my whole business based on this. Literally starting from my career in 2000, I've always said technology is a powerful tool that can help you be more productive and efficient and give you the freedom of time and money. And that's what I lead my whole business with. That's what I help all my clients with in their back-end systems, with the systems analyst mindset and a business analyst mindset to really scale them. So that's really my favorite quote, and I've carried it through all these years. And that's what I really feel good about, that I had that thought back then, and it's still what I'm serving with. Um, and for the viewers and listeners, the biggest thought that piece of information or thought or advice that I can give is, if you feel while working on your business that something is wrong at the back end, that could be real. Just get help from someone who is an expert, because things can go wrong, yes, and that's where
And
the
they will.
revenues are leaking. And they will, right?
Yeah.
And you are the best in your own zone, in your own area of expertise. But then there are other experts who can help you in your business. But before any of this happens, personally, I feel doing the inner work really sets the foundation. This is what has lasted me all these years. And I feel this is what will help any one of you last in your business, in your work, and again, creating that foundation and vision is so important.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for your time. This has been absolutely beautiful. I've loved having you on the show. For our listeners as well, if you would like to get in touch with Manu, all of the links will be in the show notes. We'll put everything out. Thank you so much. This has been beautiful. Until next time.
Thank you so much, Angie. It was really amazing. Nice talking to you. We had an amazing conversation, and I loved your thoughtful questions and how you deep dived into some of, the nitty-gritties of how things came about and the personal stories, and brought back some amazing moments from my life. So thank you for all of that. And
You're very welcome. I love that. That's the whole thing. We dive deep on this podcast because, we got to rip it apart. We really do. Otherwise, how can we help people?
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time.
Of course. Thank you for coming on the show.